Good evening. Welcome to a meeting of the Athens City Council. This is a regular meeting where we will vote on several ordinances. It's Monday, March 3rd, 2014, on or about 7 o'clock. It looks like we have all council members present, so that establishes a quorum. We don't, however, have a clerk tonight. She was babysitting. Her daughter's plane got delayed, so she's held up in Urbana. So we need to appoint a clerk, and Ms. Nisley has offered her services. Do I have a motion?
I motion that we accept Chris Nisley's work as clerk for this evening.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of adopting Chris Nisley as clerk for tonight, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Okay. We have a set of minutes to be disposed of. Regular session held on February 17th, 2014. Do you have any negative feeling about this? Okay.
I move that we adopt the minutes of said date.
Of said date, okay. All those in favor in adopting the minutes for regular session held February 17th signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, these minutes are adopted. Communications. I don't have any. Mayor, you have communications for us at this moment?
Yeah, a few.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. There is going to be a small retirement party for Chief Troxel down at the front conference room Friday between 2 and 4. Council members are invited. This is Chief Robert Troxel. He's retiring, as you know.
I'm sorry, tell the date again.
Friday, this Friday coming up. Okay. Front conference room on City Hall, 2 to 4. Come and say hello. I know the fire department had one at the community center, I believe. I was unavailable to make it at that time. Other things, of course, is I did a proclamation early for Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, which is what March is all about. Also, there is a 2014 Disabilities Awareness Festival taking place March 18th. Let's see, it's between 6 and 8:30 at the Athens Community Center. It's basically all the organizations get together, network, and if you want to participate, please do so. You can contact Mark Colson on 592-3416. Other things, of course, is that we've posted the Chief Information Officer is now posted on our city website. We're looking for a person to fill that position. Let's see, what are the other ones? We're going to hire a person, somebody by the name of George Nowicki for our solid waste control officer. He'll be starting in March 12th, so we'll be working on him, getting him orientated. He's coming from the Septic Correctional Facility. He's been a correctional supervisor there. He's also worked in EMS in Cleveland, and also at Case Western Reserve as a police and security supervisor and lieutenant. So he has some knowledge in terms of enforcement. And let's see if there's anything else I need. I think that covers all of it that I can think of.
Thank you, Mayor. Auditor Heck?
No report.
Director Lang?
No report, Mr. President.
I think that covers us all. Okay. We will move on to ordinances for second reading. And I will read them if the author wishes to add or do anything. We will go on with that. Ordinance 0714, an ordinance granting renewal of a revocable license to Douglas and Dolores Audi, 91 South May Avenue, for the use of the city right-of-way for an existing fence. Ordinance 0814, an ordinance granting a revocable license to Paul F. Carey, 147 Columbus Road, for use of the city right-of-way for an existing sign. Ordinance 0914, an ordinance authorizing an extension of the current contract with the Athens Hocking County Recycling Centers, Inc. in ancillary services as authorized by Ordinance 7712. Ordinance 1114, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application and enter into an agreement with the Ohio Development Services Agency for a community development block grant for calendar year 2015, which is federal fiscal year 2014. Mayor Wild?
I'd like to request, we have a Finance and Develop Personnel Committee next week to present for HAPCAP to come. We're discussing some of the other CDBG grants, and we want to get a move on it. I've kind of tentatively said, asked that they want to at least touch base with you. This would be the formula grant, the CHIP grant, and there's actually an infrastructure improvement grant that's out there. It's a different pool of money that we are exploring. So I think the hope is that they'll come and explain a little bit of it to you. That's okay. So this is not really part of the agenda, but it is in one sense because we're working with them a little bit more over time.
I do have one question to ask about the text on this ordinance. And you know how often the fiscal year begins before the federal, or sometimes the federal fiscal year begins before the calendar year. So I'm wondering if this text states calendar year 2015 for fiscal year 2014, and we're already in the federal fiscal year 2014. So
Yes, but
I'm wondering if
this is the intent of getting this done. This is, I believe, for the formula money for the Richland Avenue construction. And
Okay.
It should be done by...
I just wondered if it was transposed and it was actually fiscal year 2015. And,
I'd have to look at it there.
well, it'd be something we can check out before we have the third reading
Yeah,
next time.
could be transposed. Okay.
Okay.
Ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 1214, an ordinance levying assessments for street improvements in the University Estates area of the city and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Nisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're now ready to move forward with the final assessments for street improvements and sidewalk improvements in the University Estates area. Council members may recall that this was a project that totaled about $463,000. The city will be assuming the portions of street improvements that were made to what was street city property for general use, and then the sidewalk improvements will be assessed to the owners. I just wanted to extend a thank you to council members. I know Councilmember Butler and Councilmember Patterson reached out to the citizens in the University Estates area, and also that the citizens from the University Estates really were very eager to collaborate on and finding a solution to this, and then also to our public works, our street department staff that moved this along, and I think we have a good solution to what was a problem that had been nagging at us all for several years.
Comment? Mayor, did you have something?
No, it's good.
Okay. Ordinance 1314, an ordinance levying special assessments for sidewalk improvements associated with the Columbus Road, North Lancaster Street infrastructure project and declaring an emergency. Also introduced by Councilmember Nisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Once again, this is part of the assessment process for another project that we completed this past fall, and that was in the Columbus and Lancaster Road area. Once again, the city, with the help of GRIM and some city funds, was able to coordinate repairs of sewer, water, curb, and then also to make the sidewalk repairs. And it is the sidewalk costs that for which the citizens, the property owners, will be assessed for that project. So this is the final step in the assessment process.
Ordinance 1414, an ordinance amending Ordinance 14713, non-union personnel fringe benefits package, Section 21C, compensation, authorizing the Service Safety Director to hire a new fire chief at a rate of pay above the allowed 25% minimum provided in pay range 8 and declaring an emergency. Member Nisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. This particular ordinance will authorize the city, as explained, our service safety director to hire a new police chief. You may recall that just a few moments ago we've been talking about Chief Troxel, who is retiring after 40 years of service. And so since this new rate will be above 25% above the minimum pay range for this position, it does require council approval. So we're working with the recommendation of the auditor's office, the city administration, and moving forward with this.
Auditor, do you have anything to say at this point? No?
I don't think so. I think we did the calculations, and I'll discuss this, and Paula, Service Safety Director, presented it to him, and I believe
It's accepted.
it was accepted on Friday. And of course, Chief Troxel isn't off the payroll just yet, so.
Probably for the suspension on the second reading, if that's okay with you guys.
Oh. Ordinance 1514, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a settlement agreement with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency and declaring an emergency. Introduced by all council members. Who wants to speak for all council members?
Maybe I can speak on that, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Again, this is, as mentioned in committee last week, this is an educational way to deal with an issue to where the Ohio EPA found that there was improper disposal of certain hazardous chemicals here in the city, and therefore it allows the city to kind of take on two educational components. One not so educational. One is just basically having the household hazardous waste program, and the city paying $7,200 for that, and a second $7,200 for what is a training program, which will be a thorough investigation, or a thorough, inventory of all hazardous chemicals used at the water treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant, the laboratory, the two city garages, as well as engineering and public works main building. And then coming back and having a 2 half-day training seminars to train in proper disposal, as well as looking into alternatives for some of the hazardous waste, hazardous materials that we're currently using in the city.
This is an opportunity for the mayor and his group to have a real meaningful process here where people can learn about solid waste, not just be fined or slapped on the wrist. So this is a very good solution, I believe. Yes, Mayor?
I'm not sure if we need to suspend rules on this next time. No, we're good to go? Okay. I defer to the law director who did a major part of this work on it. Thanks.
I have a question. Do you see that this type of training will be ongoing in the future, maybe semi-annual basis for new employees and refreshers for older employees as laws changes and rules changes?
It's not so much that we have a lot of turnover in the water treatment plant nor the wastewater treatment plant. The fact that this occurred means that it does need to have some review of how the procedures are. We have training, safety training quite often. Whether the procedures in terms of outdated materials is another matter. We'll probably look into it and see how often we need to do it. Again, most of our employees have been around for quite some time working there. Anything in terms of a lapse of judgment, of course, is something that's when you reapply the training. Does that answer your question?
Oh,
yeah. Okay. I don't think it would be annual. I believe they do, as I say, safety for the highly hazardous materials. Procedure-wise, if there seems to be a drift on it, we'll hear about it. But I don't think it needs to be sitting them all down in one place repeatedly like this.
I'm just curious to know who will be conducting this training. Will it be conducted by the Ohio EPA?
No, we're contracting with Burgess and Eiffel. They put together a package in terms of the requirements, both doing an inventory of our chemicals, a review of what we can make less toxic, as well as procedures on how to dispose of it, as well as application. Okay, that's where it's an outside cost, but we felt it was good to get a fresh eyes on it.
Thank you. Ordinance 1614, an ordinance amending the 2014 appropriation ordinance, introduced by Councilmember Nisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many of these items were discussed last week, so I'll give a brief summary of the different, our 4 different entries for this appropriation ordinance. The first part is that $11,000 will be appropriated to the general fund, City Council 101.105. And this is for council expenses for our city website, host, Nixle, which is an information system for the city, the municipal code updates for the city also. The second entry is $20,000 to the general fund, other administration, for 911 data sets, and these are the mapping systems that we referred to last week. We signed a contract with the county 911 agency, and this will be our share of the expense for that. $7,660.82 will be for Issue 1 funds, and this is part of a larger appropriation. This particular $7,660.82 are project expenses for the Columbus-Lancaster Road portion that was encumbered or expensed this year into calendar year 2014. So we will have a larger adjustment, bookkeeping adjustment later for the Columbus Road, things that I described last week, but right now what we're doing is appropriating this particular expense for 2014. The last item is $15,000 to the garbage fund, and this is for the hazardous waste pickup that Councilmember Patterson described just a moment ago. And so the funds to make this hazardous waste pickup possible will be taken out of the garbage fund.
I would request if you could suspend rules on this, if that's possible to do. In particular, of course, the 11,000 actually for the general, for the council funding is actually for licensing and registration of all the software. And I did not put it all in there because I thought it would be gradually over the, like many bills, they'd come over the year. The other one is the 20,000 for the ortho maps and the GIS material. I actually have a contract that's sitting there that they want to sign so they can get the photos done before the trees and the leaves come out. So they called me up today and said, is the contract signed yet? And I said, well, we actually have money in the fund line we can use, but the fact is I want to run it this way, so to speak.
Actually, I just found out on Friday that money for that final payment on the Columbus Road project was dispersed. So that's a then and now, we call it payment. So that's already been paid, so it really should go into our system as soon as possible.
Okay. So, Mr. President, may I move to suspend the rules for all the reasons cited by the mayor and the auditor?
I think that's a great idea.
Second.
All those in favor of suspending the rules on ordinance 1614 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. The rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve ordinance 1614.
Second.
And we've described the various elements to it, appropriations to different accounts for different expenses occurring within the city.
All those in favor of adopting ordinance 1614 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. The ordinance is adopted. We'll move on to ordinance 1714, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to purchase a replacement track hoe for the Public Works Department. An ordinance introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you, Mr. President. As was discussed at the committee meeting last week, we need to replace our 13-year-old track hoe. And this ordinance authorizes the Service Safety Director to enter into contracts, bids and contracts, accept bids. We are taking money from several different accounts. The street fund, $22,000, the water maintenance fund, $22,000, and the sewer maintenance fund, $21,000, for a total of that $65,000.
And there is a section 2.
The ordinance,
where
yes,
We're hoping that we get some trade-in value.
correct. I did, yes.
I think you mentioned it.
So a trade-in toward the purchase. Last week, there was discussion about whether we were going to use parts or not, so it looks like we're trading it in.
Well, probably you don't need an ordinance to use it as parts, but we'll find out.
Ordinance 1814, an ordinance authorizing right-of-way acquisition, construction, and construction engineering of the Richland South Project, number 244, and declaring an emergency. Also introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bit more complicated because this is a major street project. So first off, we need to authorize to advertise and accept bids. That's the first part. The section 2 is the appropriation ordinance, where we need to amend the appropriating from the unappropriated balance. And we have different funds to do that. I don't think I'm going to go through each one of them. Section 3, the Service Safety Director is authorized to expend $4,021,788 from the following funds. And so those are listed as such. And I think the important thing for the public to understand is we are doing not just street repair and sidewalks, but we are also dealing with the infrastructure below, including water and sewer. So those are also coming out of those different lines in the budget. And then section 4 talks about how this is to help replace our aging infrastructure and optimize the safety of pedestrian vehicular traffic. So I think the important part of this ordinance for all to remember is that it's a comprehensive redo of that section of Richland Avenue, basically from the roundabout, Ohio University Inn area, back to, is that Canterbury? Canterbury Drive. And so it is a comprehensive improvement.
And when is our plan to do this?
Our plan to do this is to begin as soon as we can after May graduation, which is I believe the first weekend, second weekend in May. And it will likely run through, hopefully completion by Thanksgiving.
Of course, that's always dependent on weather and paperwork.
And surprises.
Yes.
No apocalypse.
Any other questions or
Any
comments regarding this?
I just want to say, being on the south side, it's just overdue, and let's get it done.
We're working. What is it? What? 4
4
million,
million.
2
4
million
million.
here. It's about $8 million project. Big project.
Very large project.
Okay, one reading resolution. Resolution 0214, introduced by all members of council. However,
Thank you.
Member Fall.
Thank you. We talked about this last week. Right now, the state government and the state legislature is going through a rewrite of the severance tax for oil and gas, natural resource extraction. There's been a lot of talk about this. We tried early last year, to put our own severance tax on it to help pay for the increases in impacts that oil and gas drilling does have for communities that we've seen, everything from increases in having to train people on new protocols for emergency response to roads and such. So we reviewed the House Bill 375, which is in process right now in this House, and we found it lacking. So we wanted to put forward a one-reading resolution. And I'll just read it briefly. It's a very short resolution. A resolution in support of strengthening the Ohio oil and gas severance tax. Whereas severance taxes are specifically designed to reimburse the citizens of Ohio for the natural resources extracted by private for-profit corporations. And whereas in House Bill 375, the definition of production areas does not include all production activities, significantly transport and disposal of waste generated during production. And whereas House Bill 375 reduces or eliminates certain fees and taxes currently used by Ohio Department of Natural Resources to carry out essential and needed regulatory and monitoring activities. And whereas House Bill 375 does not guarantee any increase in monies going to necessary monitoring and regulatory activities, though there is continued increase in drilling and extraction of shale gas and oil. And whereas House Bill 375 tax of 2.25% is minuscule compared to both regional states, West Virginia 5%, Michigan 6.6%, Illinois 6%, and major oil-producing states such as Texas 4.6%, Oklahoma 7%, and Alaska at 25%. Therefore, be it resolved by the City of Athens, Section 1, Athens City Council does hereby support changing House Bill 375 to strengthen and recompense the citizens of Ohio with expected increases in revenue to be shared by impacted counties, including those areas impacted by transport and disposal of production waste. This is specifically injection well activities. Section 2, the regulatory cost recovery assessment should not be repealed. Section 3, the Ohio state severance tax should be increased to match the surrounding states and large oil-producing areas of the United States. Section 4, Ohio severance tax rates need to be based on gross income, not net income, to help ensure the tax is fair and transparent. In Section 5, this resolution should be in full force and effect at the earliest moment permitted by law and passage and approval by the mayor. So, council members, I put this forward to adopt tonight.
Comments?
Just to thank Councilmember Fall for keeping us abreast of this. She provided an in-depth description of what the bill did and did not do, the House Bill 375, and thank you for your leadership on this.
Other comments from council members? Council members, all council members who support adoption of the ordinance of Resolution 0214 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The resolution is adopted unanimously. We have some other business. I think that the mayor has something to talk to us about.
We need a new alternate for our zoning board of appeals. There was a term ending for Greg Lavelle, and he decided not to re-up his membership or is serving on the commission, and I thank him for it because he's been on for quite some time. And so the task, of course, is that we will bump up Kate Housley up from alternate to regular member, standing member. She's the most senior of the two alternates, Ed Baum being the other alternate who's just been put on within the past year. So that left an opening for an alternate for the Zoning Board of Appeals. I put forward, I don't know if you got the resume for Ellen Soto. She lives on the east side, so it's geographically, Greg lived on the far east side, and so she'll kind of do a replacement in terms of geographic layouts. She's grown up here. She went to high school with various people I've talked to. She's got a law degree. She's worked at government, both in D.C. as well as other places, Cincinnati, Illinois. I spoke to her. I thought she had a good balance, and she's willing to learn and serve. So she'll get her feet wet at doing an alternate as a zoning board of appeals in case there's a vacancy at any particular meeting. She'll be voting instead, I guess, or whenever that opportunity occurs. So I need confirmation or
Right.
approval from
Well,
council.
I move that we appoint Ellen Saltro to the Board of Zoning Appeals as an alternate.
I second.
Any comments, questions?
Just thank you for volunteering. Makes our city tick, it's the volunteers, our citizen volunteers.
One more thing, I did have offers from other members, but she was first in the queue, so to speak. So, but thank you for everybody who actually, put the word out, and should work out.
Okay, shall we vote on this? All those in favor of adopting Ellen Salto for the newest member on the Board of Zoning Appeals signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ellen Salto. Now we have an opportunity for citizens.
I have other business.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm
President.
sorry.
We, last week, received notice for a notice from the Division of Liquor Control for a transfer from the West End Side Tavern. It was in safekeeping for a full D1, D2, D3, D3A permit to the Fluff Bakery and Catering. And I'm requesting, maybe other members of council, that we request a hearing to review this liquor transfer.
I would agree, Councilmember Pappy. I think it warrants a hearing, requesting a hearing.
It's been a long time since we've requested a hearing. So
It's about time.
we will work on that process and let you know next week. Okay.
What's the deadline on it? Do you have it on the permit?
It does. It says the responses must be postmarked no later than 3/24/2014.
Okay, so we have some time.
And I have been in contact with some organizations and businesses locally, and there is some concern.
Okay.
Okay. Do we need to we'll take a vote on this after we send in a request? Or
Just send in a
voting on-
request, I think.
Excuse me?
Just send in a request, I believe.
Yeah.
No?
So we'll just send in a request for the meeting. Okay. Now we have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services that were not covered on the agenda. All three of you out there? No? Okay.
We are going to have committees, right, of some sort?
Oh, yeah.
Next week is committee meeting? No?
No?
Member Nisley?
Finance and personnel.
Go ahead and put transportation as well, and we can always cancel if need be.
And everybody knows that we can add to this list also, so. Okay. My watch says 8:34. Pretty close.
7:34.
7:30.
7:34.
7:34.
What time zone you in?
Excuse me?
I just wondered what time zone you
Well, yeah.
Daylight savings, he's ahead of
He's
everybody.
getting
It
them.
has really big things that, anyway,
Is that next weekend?
we are adjourned.